Sure. Yeah. So let's pray real quick.
Here we go.
Lord, thank you again for all you are and all you do, your love and your care. Thank you for Jesus and all that he is, was and is and is to come, the hope that is there, the eternal hope, the true hope. Thank you for this craft and this passion, this ability that's really intricate to the human experience of storytelling, of communicating. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of it. I pray that we do so in a way that that glorifies you, or in step with your will. Use us for your purposes and make us more like Jesus, Lord. Amen.
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 All right. Yeah, mini disclaimer. If you want to hear the full disclaimer, you can watch yesterday's part one. But basically all I'm just saying is I'm not a guru. I don't know it all. I'm not claiming to know it all. I'm not claiming that this information is all encompassing or the last word on anything. I do think if you cross-reference the stuff that we're talking about, you'll see consistency across the board with a lot of the biggest and greatest minds in this craft. These are not my original ideas. I mean, they just have kind of gathered together, compiled, and I'm just trying to pass that information on. There's, this stuff is all malleable. That's why there's a bunch of different approaches to acting itself. There's different approaches to breaking down the scene. So yeah, I'm just trying to provide more for you to build out your toolkit, right? I think the more you cross train just in general, the more expand your horizons, the better you'll be at this. I mean, even from, and Laura could speak to this, even from just knowing the different departments. The more you do this, the more you understand about lighting, the more you understand about the camera department, and the more you understand about makeup and wardrobe and casting, and all these things will give you a better understanding of this whole machine, a better respect for different stuff. And I think understanding different processes is great, because I think there's different times and scenes and applications. You may want to try something a little different than what you normally do, but also just have a healthy respect for other people that have a different process from you. So again, I know that what I'm saying is not all encompassing, and I know some teachers are gonna, they really will latch on to part of it, say yes, no, this is the thing you have to do, and they'll say, no, that's garbage, don't do that. I did want to make sure I just didn't, for anyone who was on yesterday's or watches yesterday, I want to make sure I'm clear that I was not. Laura made a comment about us slightly disagreeing on an approach. I don't disagree with Laura, anything she said. I was just wanting to make sure I was very careful at large of being a proponent of that. If you watch the video, you'll see being a proponent of that approach. Because I don't know everyone personally, and I think it can be dicey. But yeah. Anyway, all right. So
okay. So on that note, I'll interrupt you only because I was thinking about that earlier today too, and I actually wanted to thank you, and I didn't know where I would squeeze that in, but I wanted to thank you because what works for me could be dangerous for someone else, and I think you also brought about a really, really valid point. Because I had talked about an emotional process and some healing, but you made a really great point that what then maybe worked for me in that moment would not work the same again, because that process of healing had happened. And so you said we need to be able to tangibly and authentically create these emotions, whether we have something to attach it to or not. And I thought that was brilliant. So I'm really, really glad that you shared. I'm glad I shared so that you could then share and go, hey, Laura, it's not going to work for you like that. Just so you know, I'm glad it worked out for you that time. Probably won't next time. And that was really valid information, and it was very helpful. So thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And that was just a maybe. It's so specific. That's why this stuff is so complicated. I mean, welcome to another episode of This Is Way Harder Than I Thought It Was going to Be. I mean,
amen.
It can be, yeah, exactly. It's taught with Meisner. That's much. And that was my base. The basis of my training initially was Meisner and method based. So that leads into the script analysis, right? And the scene breakdown. And so I'm going over, I did, and I'm going to finish before we move into the practical application of the script. I'm going to go over a few more things to potentially consider when breaking down a scene. But a lot of times when breaking down the scene, depending on your training, whether it's like Meisner and method based or if not, they'll break down a scene differently. Like when I was taught to do script analysis and scene breakdown with more of the Meisner stuff, you do analyze and you break it down, but then you identify emotions. So and that's I don't think that's a bad thing to do, is to analyze an emotional through line or emotional states that the character is likely to be in given these different places in the script. But there was a real trap, even when I was deeply immersed in the Meisner training. What is a trap is to try to push for the emotion, to push that, like try to do the emotion, when in real life we don't try to do an emotion or be an emotion. We try to communicate something, or we try to get something, or we have perspectives, but we're not usually trying to be an emotion. And even if we are, we're usually doing something to try to make that happen. Even if so much like I want to change my mindset, think happy thoughts. You think happy thoughts. You go through a process in your eye. You don't just think happy. I'm gonna be happy, right? So that's the danger in the analyzing of the emotions. But that is another point that I was going to get to in a minute. Was you can go through and break down kind of the emotional through line, the emotional arc, the highs and lows. We just got to be careful about pushing for that emotion, because then the acting can feel very forced, and it can be missed moments because you can't really connect and interact and listen and respond, because you're just thinking about, oh, I got to get to that thing, I got to get to be that thing, and you miss stuff. So yeah, and then the other part, yeah, thank you. And I say that from experience, because I've been guilty of it myself, and I watch it back, and I'm like, oh, you dummy, you got caught up in the trap of trying to push the emotion. Just go to the emotion instead of being and connecting, and I miss things, and I'm not happy with that work that I did in that regard. But hey, we're all learning and growing. So yeah, you got the one camp that's very emotional, very, very as if. You have your relationships. Who is this person to me? You break down the emotions. You have your as if, your imaginary circumstances that you create in your mind that shape coastal reality. And then a lot of times another camp falls into you break down you really dial in the objective, the tactic, and the obstacles, which we talked about yesterday. So anyway, that was just kind of a little bit of review. The next thing I didn't really talk about is, I didn't talk about it specifically, it's implied in what we talked about, but is subtext. You've got to analyze the subtext. Old acting teacher of mine used to always say, the words don't matter. Of course the words matter. That's not what he meant. It was hyperbole, but it was much like, when Jesus said, if you don't, hate your mother, father, or brother, you're not a follower of mine. I'm summarizing, that's not a quote, but the part of the Bible I'm talking about. He didn't mean literally hate, but in comparison to your love and appreciation and elevation and enjoyment of Jesus. The words don't matter, meaning it's not nearly as important, the words that are written, as it is what's underneath them.
And underneath the words, right? What's the subtext?
Yes. So that's not to say that you are willy-nilly with the dialogue. You need to be word for word. You need to be word for word on dialogue, unless you're given permission to go ahead to do otherwise. But what's underneath the words is so much more important than the actual words themselves in terms of communication. Yeah, so let's keep on going. What do I have next? Laura, you still there? Laura might have popped off for a minute.
Nope, I'm here. I was on mute. I'm here.
Okay, yeah, I was just scrolling. I didn't know if you had anything to add to that as I scroll through my notes here.
No,
if not, good. I'll carry on. Okay, good. So then we go to what's on the page and what's off the page. So I mentioned an example yesterday of an audition where it was pretty straightforward. I was a witness on a witness stand, a bartender that was giving a testimony about a client, and there was nothing at all to indicate in that script that I had like a special relationship with the person I'm giving a testimony about. It's just a choice that I made, and Laura went over what they mean by bold choices, and that was a choice that's not on the page. So you read what's on the page, all the clues that are given. You got to analyze that, but then you can bring other stuff to it, and as long as you're not like just totally dynamically changing the whole structure or the relationships or the dynamics of things, add the spice in there. So that's what I'm saying by off the page. So yeah, with that scene, I just decided, okay, I've got a special relationship. So when I make my eye line over to her, I'm going to smile, maybe wink, just have a little glimmer in my eye, because I made her someone that I knew and I liked and appreciated, and almost a little bit flirtatious. It was, again, not hinted to at all in the character breakdown or the script breakdown, but I did it, and I think it helped me get the role. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, when I got to set, I was like, "Do you want me to do it like I did in the audition?" They were like, "No, just do it straight, just plain, just say the words." So they didn't even want me to do that ultimately on set, but it was, I suppose, it was interesting enough to get me at least considered, or put in final contention there. So, moving along, I think it's a good idea. Again, I'm giving you lots of different tools to play around with. I think it's a good idea to also try. You've heard of playing the opposite. Um, Try the opposite. Try what's wrong. I mean, you need to have an idea of what's going on in the scene that's kind of appropriate for the story, right? I mean, if you're clearly supposed to be infatuated or head over heels about someone or deeply caring about them, and you go the other direction on you hate them, you despise them, that might not be right for the thing. That could be too big of a swing opposite. But if you set up your little at home setup, your little self tape setup, and try it a couple times like that, watch playback, it might give you a glimmer of an idea. Maybe it is. There are some moments where you could try to hide, depending on the dynamic. You can hide your love and your infatuation, by with a look or the way you interact. I just think that if you try some stuff and play around, you'd be surprised at how wide the doors can fly open, instead of just when we start narrowing. And then what happens is all your, out of 300, 400 auditions, 250, 280 look exactly the same. So try some stuff. Again, prior to filming your audition, or prior to the callback, or prior to going on set. But try some stuff out, and even if it's wrong, just to say, okay, yeah, no, that was definitely wrong. I definitely don't want to do that. Or just to make sure your choices came across the way that you intended. I'll say next, know your role. Know your role, meaning in the grand scheme of things. So we talked about yesterday, showing range and showing choices. If you have a meaty scene, making some turns, having layers to it, levels, having different tactics, right? Sometimes, especially like some of these TV shows, a lot of these TV shows we're auditioning for in the Southeast, it is not about you. You do not need to show your range. You need to have a clear perspective and point of view. You need to understand the dynamics of the relationship, and you have a job to do, and that's to move the story along, to get an exposition, to, provide an environment for where the primary characters can do their thing. So a lot of times you'll see in casting breakdowns, if you see real subtle nuance, whatever, they probably want less. Less is more. That doesn't mean not connected. That doesn't mean not have clear perspective or tactic, or for that matter, or relationship. It just means just do your job. If you're a lawyer in the room that's mediating, know what the words mean, know what they mean to you, and say them. Don't show that you can act and show that you have range and you can make a turn and all that. Just get through it. So it depends on the role. If you're the waiter, if you're the lawyer, if you're the whatever, and you're not a strong character, or it's not written in such a way where it's a dynamic, interesting interaction. Sometimes they don't want to see that you can act. For instance, the example that comes to mind immediately is there's a show called Swagger. I think shoots up in DC, Baltimore area. And a couple months ago, I got an audition for that was for a coach. And there was like a half a page of stage direction. There was only a couple lines, can't believe this is going on, timeout, ref, come here, guys, or whatever. It was not a lot of dialogue, but a whole lot of stage direction. And they put several times in this casting together when it's subtle, nuanced, natural, real. So I thought, how can I have a perspective? How can I go through the beats that they're giving me as simply as possible? I don't want to put on a show. I know what I'm looking at, know when I'm ready to call time out, know when I'm calling it, and just how do I do less? And I really thought on how do I have a clear perspective, but do as little as possible. And it was funny, I got put on hold for that. I was on hold for a few weeks. I didn't end up booking the role, but that's what I mean by, I don't want to show that I can make a big turn and be like, all upset with the timeout and then change it and bring it in emotional for the come here guys. It was just clear, said the words, had a perspective, and got put on hold for it. So that's what I mean about knowing your role. Laura, did you have anything, because on the casting side of that, from your
I don't think
perspective?
so. No, I
Okay.
mean, less is more. So sometimes, like we said yesterday, sometimes doing less is your bold choice. So if you don't understand what that means, go back and watch the video from yesterday. But yes.
Yeah, and then so this is a little bit more advanced, but as you're breaking down the scene, it can help to know absolutely what the genre is and what you're auditioning for. So, you know, if it's a lot of these shows, again, as a supporting role, and then a lot of commercials too. You got to get the words out fast. So, I mean, that's more about application, but it is a little bit about an analysis, because when you're breaking down the script, okay, what am I auditioning for? 30-minute sitcom, multicam thing? Is it an hour-long drama? What's a show? Is it a commercial? Is it a movie? So that you know also kind of how you're pacing. Again, that's leans into the application of this more than anything, but just know what it is, the project, the type of project you're auditioning for or reading for. Next, I'll talk about stage direction. So I just wanted, it gets complicated, but I, for the most part, especially when you're auditioning, but even on set, sometimes the stage direction is more of an intention versus a literal word for word. Sometimes it is literal word for word, and you'll get there and that's exactly, they've already, it's just what they want. But sometimes an audition, obviously it's really hard to replicate that. You know, I've gotten auditions where I've been hit by a car in the audition, where I'm in the middle of a battlefield during war and grenades and bombs are going off, and just all these kind of crazy stuff. So it's hard to replicate that. And then it's also sometimes hard to prepare for the exact thing. And because you might prepare for an exact thing. Let's say you're going to set and you got a script and you're breaking it down, you're preparing it. It says you're doing a little woodworking, and you prepare your whole scene around this activity of you're doing woodwork, and then you get there and they're like, no, actually you're doing this other activity. You're doing something else different. Well, that kind of stuff can happen too. So you need to be able to roll with it. So honor more the intention of what's going on than the word for word. You know, like if it says yelling, why does it say yelling? Do other people in the scene actually mention you yelling? So it's like an actual part of the scene, like that has to be honored because people are talking about how you raised your voice and spoke in that manner? Or is it just an intention of intensity? So again, you might be able to have a little play with that. So I would say honor the intention of the stage direction rather than the literal part of the stage direction, especially in auditioning. But then when you get to set, be ready to pivot. You know, be ready for both. Be ready for word, but oh no, okay, I'm not going to hug. I'm going to high five or whatever the thing is. So then we get to, again, it's just so funny because it's all so specific to the individual. I'm not a fan of planning and choreographing your moments. Okay, I'm not a fan, me personally, of, you know, this is what I want to do, this part of the scene, then I want to be here with this part of the scene, then I want to be here with this part of the scene, and this is where I'm going to drive the scene. Especially if I'm interacting with a person in a in-person callback or on set, because I want to be live in that moment. However, the dynamic of filmmaking, many times, if you've not been on set a lot, if you have been on set a lot, you know this, there's a lot of crazy technical things that you have to do. You do have to remember things. You do have to have enough of your brain operating in the technical side of it that you remember when you picked your glass up and took a drink, because they want to match that every time. You've established it, they want to match it for continuity's sake. Or, you know, with your blocking, you start here, then you move here, then you move here. Or you turn on this one and turn. There can be a million different things. You know, they can tell you, I want you to, in between every line, I want you to look back over that picture and think about it, and then look back at your character. And you got to find a way to do that and do that naturally. So there is a choreography element to what we do. What I wouldn't choreograph necessarily is, again, kind of going back to what I was saying about pushing emotion and trying to say, I want to be this emotion here, I want to be this emotion here, and I want to be that emotion there. Instead, you can kind of maybe try different tactics at different points. Associate, okay, I'm gonna flirt here, I'm gonna be more playful here, and then I'm gonna really try to dial it in and make sure she understands every word I say here, and kind of shift a little bit of that. But then it's also got to be free and reactive of what the other person's doing. So I'll say all that to say, you know, just to keep in light of all this scene breakdown that we've talked about, you don't want to make all your notes where it's so choreographed and so robotic and so planned that it sucks the life out of it. One, two, you can't really react because you've already got a plan. And then 3, you can't pivot, because that's, again, if you don't know, when you get a call back, 99% of the time, they're going to give you a note, even if they love the first take, to see if you can take the note, because they want somebody on set that can pivot and do whatever the director asks of them, instead of someone who rehearses and is just good at one thing. So be careful about planning and choreographing the moment. Do your homework. Know how you feel about all the different things. Have a bunch of different options available for different tactics or different as-ifs or different relationships. Choose a couple and then go have fun with it. Play with it. Create the world and then go play in the world as you create it. And then after saying all of that, don't overcomplicate it. Meaning, I'm fully aware that some scenes you might immediately attach to. You just vibe with. You connect. You don't need to overcomplicate and create all this crazy stuff and backstory and take copious notes or whatever. You're just like, yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm gonna try a couple things. I know what's going on here. It can be a simple scene. It can be intuitive. But don't be lazy, Yeah, that's where knowing yourself comes into play. And then just making sure you really are reading and assessing, do I have a strong connection to do this, or do I just, am I just winging it and relying on my talent or my personality or my whatever, and being lazy. Yeah. So in summation, play with this goes back to yesterday, the first video as well. You get that scene, play with it right out of the gate, say those words out loud, try around some things, record it, see what happens. Then you need to break it down, analyze it, identify things, make choices, make specific choices, maybe even some bold choices. All right. Create some things that you connect to personally. No one can tell you what puts you in different states, or what relationship as ifs will create in you a sense of the relationship that parallels what the character is. You have to analyze and then say, what inside of me, what people in my life, or what imaginary circumstances could I create that mirrors that? Okay, so you have to do that personally. And then once you've done all that, let it go, and again, play within the world you've created. Laura, you got anything on that before we jump into the scene, or?
I do. So for those who are a little bit newer to it and go, well, wait a second, how am I supposed to not make it complex? But it is complex. And so if you think of it like riding a bike, right? When we put a kiddo on a bike, the very first thing we're like, all right, hands on the handles. Now keep your feet. Now keep your balance. Now look at the road. Don't look down. Look at the road. And we have to, it's a lot of work, and it feels complex to do all those things. And then you look at, say, like your 10-year-old who's riding a bicycle, and then they're hands on there, but then they're standing, or then they're sitting on the seat and their hands are off because they've got the balance down. They hop on the bike and it's just automatic. And then you've got these other people where you watch them do bike tricks and you're like, that's not even human. What are they doing? And sometimes we watch actors and go, how did they get to that place? But it was a matter of doing. And one thing Joseph said yesterday that we'll reiterate today, it's the process of doing. That's what takes the complexity out of this, is just get on that bike and ride. Get on that bike and then lift one hand at a time, and then lift your other hand, and then maybe you stand up. It's a process. And the more you do it, when those folks jump onto the bike, they're not thinking about looking at the road. You and Barbara actually mentioned something yesterday. When you know how to truly become a character, all of these things just intuitively happen because you have learned how to become the character. So just like riding a bike, I really, really believe that any actor has the potential, having done this enough, having done the work, having shown up. If you are consistently doing this, I really, really believe that this complex system is going to come naturally for you at one point, and you'll get to do some really neat things later on that you could never even imagined at the beginning.
Yeah, and it develops over time, and certain things right now that we went over, you'll attach to or gravitate towards more, and that's fine, and they'll really help you get into the scene and help you connect and act it well. And then over time, you might add things, or you might even shift a little bit. And then certain roles, it might be easier. You might, the one way into it, as far as script breakdown or scene breakdown, might not feel very helpful. It feels just like homework and busy work, but it's not actually yielding any result in the frame. Whereas another type of scene breakdown gives you something to latch onto, and like, yes, I've got this, I can latch onto that, I can do that. So that's why I say I think it's a good idea to be open, not closed-minded, and just at least consider and try these things. And if they don't work, just kind of put them on the back burner for now. I try to do that now with every set that I go to. I try to go with a really open mind in terms of, let me just hear what let me hear what people have to say. If they have strong opinions, sure, I'm going to listen, instead of being so eager to tell what my opinion is. If they ask, I'll share, but let me hear. And you hear a bunch of crazy information. You hear information that's not great, that's not good, but you can listen to it and process it. And okay, well, no. Yes. Oh, well, there's something, you know what? I never considered it. Maybe I'll try to apply that to what I'm doing. So anyway, do we all have the scene? Can you all access the scene? Go, like, give me a sign language for yes if you can, so we can kind of see.
So we did have some folks enter after I had sent it the first time. So I did just put it into the chat a second time. So if you guys came in after that, you can still access.
Laura, are you gonna have to go? Or are you good? Are you
I'm
staying?
good. I'm good. We were able to.
Okay, great. I sure do love having you here.
Love to be here. You're a good partner.
Okay. Well, thanks. Stop it.
Laura, do I have to download it? Because I do see the link, but do I have
No,
to download?
you should just be able to click and open it.
Really? Okay. Because let me see. It goes straight
Well,
to my saved files in document.
Yeah, so then minimize. If you minimize your Zoom screen just a little bit, just take your arrow on the side of the screen, scoot it down a little bit, down and over, and then you should be able to hit that download and pop it up on the other side of your screen.
Another way to do that is right click on the icon and choose open.
Okay, let me try. Thank you.
Ian, I see Ian in his car. Hey, man.
Yes, and I just sent the script one more time because right after I sent it, he popped in. And I don't think you can access the chat from before you came in. So Ian, you should have that script. If you want to access it, just added it to the chat.
Okay, so those who can see it, read it. We're gonna pretend we skipped the first process. We're pretending we already did we just printed it out and we started saying our words out loud and recording it, just trying a bunch of crazy stuff and just having some fun with it, seeing what naturally comes out of your mouth. And then we've moved on to our next step and we started breaking it down. So anyone from yesterday, our first major point was what? Is there anybody who came back from yesterday?
So yesterday?
Uh-huh.
Well, let's see. Your first major point was, well, you said it a minute ago, just read it, play with it first.
Uh-huh. And then after that?
Observe, connect, and react. Break down the script. Where's the character coming from? The who, what, when, why, where?
Yeah. So who, what, when, why, and where. And then when we dug into it, there was a given circumstances. Remember that?
Yep. Where's the character coming from? Create a backstory.
Yeah. So what are the given circumstances here in this scene? If this is for anybody, Laura, what is the best way to do this? You've done this before. Is it best to just have people shout out, or do you want to type it in and you read it?
That's up to you. I actually so I was working. You caught me while I was distracted. I was putting up the screen on my.
I see that. That's good. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Can y'all see my messy desktop too? All my pictures. I'm trying to. Can you see just the script?
Just the page one, not even the total page one, but yes.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. And then now you can see the bottom. Here's two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then scrolling. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So I have found that really kind of the popcorn approach seems to work best.
Popcorn. Okay, let's do it. What are some given circumstances here?
They're in a living room.
Hey, there we go.
Where, but
Yep.
it's a home. It's a home feeling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
What
given
else?
Just sitting
circumstance,
down.
there's a
Okay.
feeling of being uncomfortable. Shiftiness.
Yeah, there's yep. It says uncomfortable. Yep. There's a shifting.
That's
Uh-huh.
kind of
Stares off at
important.
nothing. Uh-huh.
There's
What
tension.
else?
There's
Unsure what to do, so there's an uneasiness of what's going on, of the situation, where they don't know where to go. I don't know, but I haven't
Mhm.
never read the script before, so that's what I'm thinking first.
Right.
It
It is a
looks-
little vague. I'll be honest, it is a little vague, so you don't have a whole lot of given circumstances. I did that on purpose because we were using it for some acting classes, and I didn't want to be too bog the students down with a bunch of stage direction. Yeah. So then the next thing, what are the relationships? What do we have going on here? As much as you can tell.
It
There is
seems like there might be dating.
there's family and there is tension. Jesse wants something from Lee. Lee seems incapable of giving it.
Like
Okay,
a lack
yeah,
of
make it.
empathy. Like a lack of empathy. Why is it so hard for you
Ooh.
to act like you care?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. We don't know the exact relationship. It doesn't say, well, it does say family. It says we don't know the specific relationship, I should say. Sorry, we know it says we're family, but then again, sometimes people say family, and like I had an Aunt Mo all growing up who wasn't really my aunt, not by blood or by marriage, but we called her Aunt Mo. So yeah, it's a family-like relationship, or at least they're referring to it that way. Yeah, would anybody, and I'm kind of blazing through this. There's a lot more to extrapolate, but I'm just kind of rolling through this for the sake of review and for people that are just on for today. How might you title this scene? And there's a lot of options here. This isn't a right wrong, but if you, from the perspective of, you can pick. You can say from the perspective of Jesse or from the perspective of Lee. How would you title the scene?
Don't you care?
Ooh, there we go. There you go. From the sake of who? It's from the perspective of who. Don't you care?
From
It
Jesse.
actually could be. Yeah,
Jesse.
it could be both, though, couldn't it? It could potentially be both because of subtext. It's a lot of people, depending on their personalities, will say things because that's how they knew and grew up and learned to communicate. They don't know any different, right? But underneath, they might be thinking something that doesn't necessarily seemingly align with that on the surface. I definitely think more so Jesse than Lee, but I think it could potentially apply to Lee too. Cool.
I thought
So
of
what might?
silence. Oops, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I thought of silence is golden from Lee because he's happy he's not bothering to say anything. So he's
Yeah.
cherishing that.
Sure. And there could be a ton of reasons why with
Yeah.
that as well. Again, we don't have much information. So this is one of those scenarios. If it's an audition, you got to make choice. You got to fill in the blanks. You're going to have to just make up stuff here because we don't have a character breakdown. We don't have a script breakdown. We don't have a dynamic or what the show is about. If you just literally have this and not much more, you still got to ask all the questions. You still got to make some choices, fill in the blanks somehow. Okay,
How
so
about- Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. I like this because the differing perspectives, I think, helps other people open up their mind a little bit. Like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. I would have immediately gone to this, but I like the different perspectives. So go ahead.
I was just thinking I'm here. Just simple, I'm here. Because neither
Mm.
one of them are really there. Where it seems to be that Lee is
Mm.
well, he's there, but he's not cooperating.
Yeah, they're both there, but neither of them are there together necessarily. It doesn't seem
Right.
like they're not on the same page. They're not there in union and meshing, seemingly, for sure. Okay, what about a moment before? What might be some moment before? Is, again, we don't have a lot of information. So
I think
as an actor, though, if you're going to put this, I'm sorry, I'm just touching on auditions again, and Laura might chime in on this, but as an actor, if you're putting this on tape, you've got to have a clear moment before, both Jesse and Lee. Jesse's coming in and saying this information. Why? Has Jesse thought about this for a long time and they're finally getting to say this? Has Jesse had this conversation 1,000 times before and this is the last time and they've made up their mind? I'm going to say this one more time. I'm going to try to get through with them. Did Jesse just get a phone call with information that's like Lee's terminally ill? You know what I mean? So you got to have something, and it's got to be, you need to be stewing it at the very top of the audition. It doesn't have to necessarily be projected or implied, or it doesn't have to read as this is exactly what I'm thinking, but you've got to create and have something both for Lee and for Jesse. So what are some options there?
And you'll look for one particular word. There's one word in our script cues that gives you a ton of information about how you can process this. What do you think that one word is?
Uncomfortable.
Mm-mm.
Want.
Dismissive,
Re-enter.
the,
It's the word want, W-A-N-T.
Not the one I was thinking. I think somebody just said it. I think they just said it.
dismissive.
Nope.
No?
Re-enters.
Re-enters. That tells
Re-enters.
us a
Oh.
lot
Ooh.
about the moment before. So I think that's a
Mm,
very key word
that's
for you
right.
guys as you ponder.
It is, and but yes, and there's so much yes and in this.
Improv.
It's like with God. It's like with theology. There's a lot of both ands. We want to say, well, it's either this or it's that. Well, sometimes with God, it can be yes and both and. It does matter, but it still gives you a lot of options. You still have a lot of options potentially to fill in there. So yeah, give me a few more moment befores from Jesse or Lee, whatever you're kind of drawn to there.
So
I've
obviously-
got something. So I think that Lee could be having a drinking problem. And so before he's had a real problem with it, and Jesse comes in, he's having a beer.
Mm.
So
There you go.
he's
Yep.
wondering, are you going to keep going on like this? Are you going to keep it up? And then he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to, that kind of a thing. That's
Great
my
observation.
creation.
Love that. What was the other one? Someone else was about to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say addiction also.
Interesting. It's so funny how this goes because again, I wrote this, so I had a certain thing in mind, but it's funny how this happens. A lot of people don't know who's who in this either. We're split 50-50 on people thinking which one is like a parent and which one's a child. If that is even a thing, but a lot of people leaned into that and it was like split 50-50 as to what was what. Anyway, let's roll through a few more. Okay, so I would like to hear another maybe a moment before for Jesse, real quick. I mean, I've said a few.
I think they could be brothers. Like maybe Jesse is the older brother, Lee is the younger brother. And Lee addiction came off of a binge for the evening and enters Jesse after picking him up from the from jail or hospital or whatever. Yeah.
Love that creativity, love that specificity. You got something, and then there's going to be a lot behind what you just said. Just words are going to be weighted because you created that right there. Now when you say you think you're ready for the next step, it's weighted. You've got like all kinds of ideas that are good baggage that's coming with that line. You've got something in mind when you say ready for next step. You're not just saying like, oh, how do I want to say the next step? Do I want to be like squint my eyes? And that crap doesn't matter. You've got intention. You've got heart behind that. Are you ready for the next step? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be articulated. It's there. It's within because of what you created. Love that. Great job. All right. So then some objectives. So Jesse or Lee, what do they want?
I think Jesse wants peace. I think that Lee is walled up or angry, and I think Jesse wants to get along.
Okay, so what would a tactic, if he wants peace, how is he going to go about getting peace? What is a tactic Jesse might use?
Just to talk to him kindly.
Okay, so be gentle, caring,
Gentle.
considerate, patient, appeal to him. Sure.
I think
What are some other
Jesse's
ones?
trying to be convincing. He's trying to convince Lee to do something that he wants him to do.
Okay, so
So for-
convince would be to convince him would be more of an objective, right? So how would he go about convincing him as a tactic?
He would be trying to verbally talk him into it. I'm thinking maybe Jesse, because he said he entered again. I'm thinking maybe Jesse has had a talk to him about this before, and he's coming in, and Lee is up to the same thing. So now he's coming in angry.
Okay, so he can be more pointed, more deliberate, more
Yeah.
intense, and making sure that Lee is going to hear every word he says. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Cool. So let's keep kind of running down. Do you see any turns or shifts or beat changes that are kind of on the page, not necessarily getting real crazy creative, but do you see some moments in there where there seems to be some a potential shift or turn?
I think when,
when Lee, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, Jesse asks if he's ready for the next step. It could be a change.
I'm just
Could
thinking
be.
when
Yeah.
Lee says, you want me to act like everything is sunshine and waterfalls, just like preparing for potential shift on what he's going to be able to do next or something.
Can everyone see page 2, or are you only seeing what's on page 1?
No,
Just I was on page 1. I was on page 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's review page 2. I think there's some
Okay.
some
Yeah.
more information in there. Sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, someone just said Jesse says I'm gonna go. Right, says I love you. But yeah, that little paragraph. So those who haven't read it yet, I just told you. Yeah, I think that part of the script lends itself to some kind of shift, some kind of turn in tactic or whatever else. Jesse waits to hear if Lee has anything else to say. Nothing. That's it. That's the response. Okay, so I'm gonna go. I love you. Not that it matters, but I'm saying it again before I leave. And then there's another one potentially at the very end there where Lee says, Jesse, I can't change who I am. Maybe that's a turn shift. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's a double down. Maybe Lee is emphatic. Maybe Lee has righteous indignation and they are correct and Jesse is wrong and does not see the world as it is. I don't know. Maybe Lee is saying I can't change who I am, but I really would like to. I wish I could. I don't know. There's a bunch of different. The point is, there's a lot of different options that you could kind of play this and still would be within the realm of the world of possibility. You could see, as we said, don't try to get it right. You want to connect to it and make decisions and don't just box yourself in. The other reason why I wrote this a little bit more vague is just to show you not to and we're getting off of scene breakdown a little bit, but it does apply because what happens is sometimes we get scenes and the stage direction will box us in. We'll get bullied by the script. We'll say, oh, they're talking about drugs. Now I can't make any other connection. It has to be, do I know someone who's been, riddled with substance abuse? Well, break down the dynamic of it, and you could play it a bunch of different ways. You can play it as you're, brokenhearted because of substance abuse. You could play it as internally from your perspective as they're breaking your heart because they don't ever want to be with you again. They're breaking up with you or something. You see what I mean? There's a lot of different ways internally. So don't get bullied by the script. You don't have to use that example. You analyze the stage direction to see what you personally can connect to that parallels, because no one has to know what you're thinking on the inside. They just need to know what it's reading as and how it comes out.
I was thinking for the last part where Lee says, I can't change who I am, that because he couldn't hold eye contact with Jesse and he's struggling to find the words, it seemed to indicate to me that he was trying to hide his tears, and that when he says, I can't change who I am, he starts heavily grieving. So he's really giving a message to Jesse that he is a mess, trying to say, help me by breaking down.
Could be. Absolutely. Yeah. Just a couple more things and I'll open up for questions. So subtext here, what are some of these places where like subtext the whole scene matters in subtext. So I'm not saying that the subtext matters all the way through. What are some parts of the scene though that really jump out, where you've got to read subtext and you have to make some decisions on the subtext.
I think a big
So like
one.
when,
Go ahead.
no, please.
I was just gonna say quickly, I think for me, what popped out on page 2 is when Lee says, I don't feel like I should have to pretend something I'm not, because what are they pretending that, what are they, sorry, I'm gonna stop talking because my toddler is playing their harmonica and I can't think, but that's what popped out at me.
Yeah. No, and what does that? Yeah. So if you're Jesse, what does that mean really? What is the subtext there? If I don't feel like I should have to pretend to be something I'm not, does Jesse think that that is what is even being said? You know what I'm saying? Like, am I hearing something that's way off in left field, or am I hearing as Jesse? Am I hearing just justification for you doing the thing that you shouldn't be doing? You see, you need to. What are you hearing? Because if this is a family, because they say we're family, if you have established relationships, if you have established a relationship, then there's going to be weight to that that's other than just on the surface. Same with I'm here. And it says Jesse waits to hear if Lee has anything else to say. Why? You know, what is Jesse hearing when Lee says I'm here and nothing else? Is Lee hearing, beep, you know what I mean? Is he hearing I hate you? Is he hearing I give up? Is he hearing I don't care anymore? Is he hearing leave and never come back? Because you've got, again, established relationships, so you make some choices there. That's why I say that the subtext is so huge. And then the same with that last line again, as Lee, there's a bunch of different choices with the subtext there. You're saying I can't change who I am, but are you saying, if you're Lee, are you saying I don't care to change? I shouldn't have to change. I don't want to change. Are you saying I desperately want to change, but I can't change and I'm sorry? Are you saying, like someone just said, help me? Are you saying I can't change who I am, but you're like asking, please help me? Don't give up on me. There's a lot, and that's why that one teacher always said the words don't matter. It's because you can say that last line a bunch of different ways, and it can mean a lot of different things. And I know that's not rocket science to y'all. I know y'all know that, but it's a good reminder for us all. So, questions?
You must have taught fabulously.
No questions. Wow. Okay.
Well, I
Jean,
have just a curiosity question. You said you wrote the scene, and
Uh-huh.
I'm listening to everybody talk about the choices they have made in this brief moment.
Uh-huh.
I would like to know, are Jesse and Lee male, or male-female, or female-female?
Yeah, good question. So the reason I wrote it like that is because we have mixed company in the class. So I didn't want to mess up. Again, I use this scene for newer students as well as intermediate students, and I didn't want them to get bogged down and messed up by that, because sometimes if they see a boy name and they're a girl and vice versa, that they get like confused and like, I don't know what to do with all that. So I chose these ambiguous names, not because I don't believe that there are two genders, but because just to make it easier for everyone. In my mind, from where I was writing it, they were both male. Lee is the father and Jesse is the son.
Thank you for telling us what you did. This just points out how many choices an actor has to make. If it's not told to you in the script, you're going to have to decide, because the dynamics will be very different.
Absolutely. And again, it also points out more freedom you have than you think you do, because all of a sudden you say, Jesse turns to his dad and says, and you're like, oh, it's got to be this way. It's a father-son. But the truth is, if you live long enough to experience this, sometimes the dynamic shifts as you get older, or sometimes not even before you get older. It depends. What if the parent has the drug addiction problem, and all of a sudden the kid is parenting the parent? You know what I'm saying? So given different dynamics, different struggles, stages of life, sometimes the child does have to be more of the parent. But what will happen is in our compartmentalization, which is fine. It's the way we were designed. We were created. That's what our brain does to process all the information that comes from the world all the time. But we just have to realize that we're that way. And then when we read a scene, not box ourselves in so quickly by reading the stage direction. You know, Jesse speaks to dad like, oh, it's got to be this one way. Now I have to make sure I speak to my Lee as if it is my dad. And that's what the casting director wants to see. And now we've eliminated all these wonderful, fantastic, dynamic, captivating, interesting choices potentially that could have been made. Not that it can't be interesting as the son, but you see what I'm saying? There's a world of opportunity out there that stage direction can. That's why I said honor the intention of the stage direction rather than the word for word articulation of the stage direction.
And also,
any other? Oh yeah, go ahead.
What you just said reminds us to not box ourselves in, even if they do give you stage directions.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Exactly. Yeah, my first biggest problem with that was I got a scene that said I had just come back from war. I've never been to war. Thank all the veterans and service people that fight for us, but I've never done that myself. I had PTSD. I've never suffered from that. In the script, I had PTSD. I had just come back from war. In the script, my wife had been raped, and I was going to kill her rapist. That stage direction, I was like, I don't know what to do with any of this because I can't relate to any of that. So I had to really break down. And, you know, and at first my inclination was like, okay, what situation where I'd be mad enough where I want to go kill somebody? Oh, that's a mistake, you know? Well, let me marinate on what it would be like to know my wife got raped. I don't want to do that either. That sounds pretty disgusting, terrible. How do I put myself in a mental position where I'm suffering from PTSD? That's not healthy to, you know, people that suffer from PTSD. I don't think they want to suffer from PTSD. So I needed to break down more of what was going on in a behavioral level and relationship dynamic, and then make parallels that were healthy. But yeah, anything else before we wrap up? Any other questions or?
One comment. I've been listening on the stuff. It almost implies, and I probably need to make this clear, that as actors and you're reading the script, you do not need to be working in a vacuum. And that is where the director can come in and give, and I've directed, I'm putting on the director hat right now. And yes, I let the actors do their thing. Show me what you can do and what your take is on this. Then, because it might be better than my take as the director. And so why I do that, but the actors really does not need to be in a vacuum trying to figure out this script. If, you know, and that's where the director can come in and give. And that's why I think directors need to learn acting to help actors and give them the direction that they may be seeking to figure out where this scene is going. Same thing with the playwright or the screenwriter. You know, they might have maybe they didn't put enough information in there to help, you know, a certain help actors get through this scene, and you just don't want to go waste time or go down to a rabbit hole in a direction that may not really work for that. I mean, that's, yes, absolutely, you want to play with that because there could be some nuances, some wording and the phrasing that you just never saw before. But you know, from what I'm hearing, everybody's talking, and in what you're saying, talk to the director, talk to, you know, if you can go to the screenwriter and he will help you as an actor get through these scenes, get through the process of trying to figure out your character. That's my 2 cents.
And
sure, yeah, thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying thank you, Brad, for that. Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, it's a stair step, you know, a process along the way. If you're just doing a self-tape audition, many times don't have anyone you can access, and you have some breakdown information, but maybe not, sometimes limited. Sometimes the character breakdown is just a rewording of exactly what's on your sides. They don't really give you any other information of the dynamic of the relationship. And then as you move along, obviously, if you get to see a whole script, well, a whole script is going to tell you way more than a scene. So you will get to answer more questions that even if you're breaking down that scene, you have other bits of information to now apply to that scene in terms of relational dynamics, et cetera. And then yes, obviously, usually if you have a significant role, you'll be able to communicate with the director. A lot of this, depending on the project and depending on the size of the role, though, sometimes you won't get much communication. You just can't, logistically speaking, because as you know, as a director, if you all don't know, a director is putting out 1,000 fires an hour. You're constantly dealing with problems, and sometimes they cannot speak to you, especially if you're a smaller role. You're just going to be expected to be prepared fully, be ready to take any notes that are given to you. And if no notes are given, execute well, do your job, and then go home, because directors are probably the hardest working people on the set. I mean, crew works like crazy too, I know, but the director's got 1,000 things to think about. Guys, I remember one of my first features, the director wasn't saying anything, and I was like panicking. I called my acting teacher. I was like, I think he hates me. He hasn't said anything to me. Like, we've been shooting for half a day. And he was like, no, Joe, you're probably just doing what he wants, and he doesn't need to. So he's just not saying anything. But I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, he's not talking to me. I think he hates me. I think I'm gonna get fired. I didn't get fired. Spent like 14 days on that set. It was awesome. But anyway, yes, thank you for that, Brad. It's a whole process. And yeah, what else? Anybody got?
Yeah, I'll just toss in there. This falls in that basket that you were talking about. This is way harder than I ever thought it was going to be. There are so many possibilities. Now, if you are looking at an audition for a television series, a lot of this world work and environment work is already done for you. You have to watch the show. You need to see how they have set up that world. And especially if you have a smaller role, less is better. They're not looking for you to play the lead. They already have leads in the series. If it's an independent film project,
you take the lead.
It's a whole other pool of fish. And sometimes they will send you the whole script because they're generous that way. And other times they're very, very, very protective, and you're not going to get one iota of information beyond the piece of paper they sent to you. So the whole point that Joseph is making is you have to create the world where they haven't handed it to you. You have to create the character where they haven't outlined it distinctly for you. That's our job. That's the fun part. So don't get tied in knots about it, but do know a process that works for you to make it happen.
I was going to say, yeah, what was told me many years ago, just do your best, have fun with it, and let the chips, fall where they may. I have to make this comment. For me personally, this is, I'm coming back from a 35-year hiatus from doing theater, films. And I've been amazed. I've been kind of watching to see what has changed and what has not changed. The biggest things I have seen has changed is how you audition.
Yeah.
35 years ago, you did it live. You showed up and you had your memorized scripts. There was no such thing as recording it and sending it out and being able to redo it the way you want to. I mean, tough. That was you were there in front of the casting agent, director, what have you. And so now to have this where you can almost make it pretty and do it and edit yourself and show stuff, it's a whole lot easier, I think, in some respects, but it's also a little bit harder for the person on the other end having to watch all these and trying to make a decision. But I think part of it is still the same. Just do your best, have fun with it, and let the chips fall where they may. You may not get it, on that one, but you know what? You learn. Just treat it as a learning process. You've learned, okay, this doesn't work. I can do this better. And that's what you focus on. Anyway. Just my comment again.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate that. Laura, what were you were
Well,
gonna
I was going to
chime
read a
in.
question from Sharon and just address that because she said, what if there's a curse word in the script? Can we not say it? And I'll just tell you my personal take on that. I don't ever say it. I go with the intention of the line. And so for Joseph, like even if I were reading for Joseph, for Jesse, there is a line that says, I've tried repeatedly to get through to you, but you're bent on keeping us at arm's length. I would have to pray about whether or not I felt okay. Like I know what it means, and it means the literal place of, and they're bent.
Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, in that reference, I think it's literally a reference to like hell is dragging you down. And so I would pray and say, well, Lord, is that one okay? Is that not, like I really would have to pray and discern that, but I would powerfully convey the emotion and the intent of that message. And I would say, you are so crazy focused on keeping us at arm's length, or maybe if that were the character I had developed. So I say, stay true to your convictions, always, 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 always. Do not ever cross your boundaries for any opportunity. The convictions that the Lord has placed in your heart, my take is, don't ever step over that line for anyone or any project or anything. Because this relationship is between you and the Lord. And so you don't want to do anything to dishonor that and the convictions he's placed on your heart. Other people may say different. That's just my take.
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah. Whatever your convictions are there. I know different people have different convictions as to exactly how the potential gray area plays out. But
and Diana,
yes, I've done that before.
She said that she has asked directors every time, which I don't usually ask. I just submit it without asking. But interestingly, she has asked, and she said that they have all responded. Only 2 of them were set on her using the word. The others allowed her to take it out. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I did every single one. I asked in an email after I saw my sides in the script, and specifically asked them. I'd say, I'm not comfortable using such and such word. Am I able, can we leave it out of the script, or can I say something else? And all have been actually, they were all pretty positive, but 2 of them wanted the words kept in. But all the rest took it out for me. So, or I didn't have to say it. Yeah, it was a good response. So, and if you don't get a good response, you don't get a good response, But I did that because that's what I need to do for me.
I love it.
All right. Anyone else? Any other questions before we head out?
Last thing I wanted to mention is that after yesterday's session, I actually had 2 people come to me afterwards and say, hey, so is Joseph taking on new students? Could we maybe study with him? And the answer to that is he is considering new students and, in a virtual environment. So if you guys are looking for a new coach and you really like his teaching style and his methods, please do get in touch with me, Laura@ChristianCasting.com, or message me on Facebook, and I will absolutely get that information to you. He last year came to me and said, Laura, I love what you do with actors and I want to be a part. I want to give just because I want to give. And can you help me do that? And he and I have been knocking out these free Zooms now for several months, and I really, really appreciate it. So I can recommend him with a full heart and say he is for you guys. And if there's anybody that says, hey, I want to do a session or 2, then I can absolutely connect you guys and make that happen.
And sorry about the bad word in the script.
Well, but you know what? Sometimes like word intention, it's not, I've told my kids, if you're talking about the place, then that is the word, it's in the Bible. But if you're not, but also we say donkey around my house too. I go to church people who read it and I'm like, no matter what version of the Bible I have, if I read it, I say donkey, like I just do. So we all have our own convictions based on our own upbringings and our own Holy Spirit led moments. And so with that one, I don't see that as profanity, but I would still just have to question myself and go, well, is that something that I would say or not? So I not calling you out on that. I was glad that Sharon asked that question because I could say, hey, that's something that I would address too, but we always address it in prayer. And that's everything. I mean, even if the character is saying some super sleazy line that you don't feel comfortable with, it doesn't even have to be profanity. You could go, oh, wow, that one really makes me feel gross inside. You have to pray about those things and ask for discernment. And the Lord says, if you ask for wisdom, he will give it. And that is every single time. He says he gives it abundantly. So we can feel safe asking for that wisdom and discernment. Do you do voiceover character training? If somebody asking.
I don't know. I have not done much in the way of voiceover. So I'm sure there's some carryover and application to that, but I'm sure there's a whole lot in the voiceover world I know nothing about. Sorry.
Yes, agree. And I do actually have
Be honest.
a couple connections for you, Brad. So if you want to email me, I can get you connected with those folks. So awesome. Well, lots of people telling you thank you, Joseph. Lots and lots and lots. So thank you guys so much for your time these last couple of days. And if you have stuff that you would love to see us cover, I would imagine I might bug Joseph and be like, hey, you want to do another one next month or the month after? And so if you guys have topics, I know he's got a couple in mind that we still want to tackle, but we would love to know, what is it that is calling your heart, the most? Like, I really want to learn about this. I want to do this part of my filmmaking journey well. So let us know. Okay, so Brad, are you asking for my website or for Joseph's? By the way, Joseph says he needs to update his.
Yeah, I don't judge my website. I did not, you notice I specifically did not address that issue. I didn't say you people need to have your websites updated with new materials, because mine is outdated, but it's josephgray.net. I think my email is on there. But again, please don't judge me. I'll
Did you create your own
preemptively say.
website? Did you create your own, or you just paid someone to create your website?
No, I did it all on my own. So
Okay.
at one point it was new and fresh and interesting. 7 years ago. It's tough, I mean, I look back and it's tough juggling all the things, right? Because I do some writing and producing as well, and I'm auditioning and I teach classes, and you're trying to update your casting websites, and I haven't updated my headshots in a while, and I've got my agents asking, well, you need some new shots, and then like, okay, well then you need your real material up on Actors Access and get her to casting, and then okay, you need to get it up on YouTube. You need to. So I mean, I have all these things. You know how it is.
Yeah.
That was my point. This is what has so changed in 35 years. None of that. You took out trade ads and things like that. You didn't do any of this, and I'm amazed. I mean, databases weren't even around where casting directors could keep up with headshot. Now they do. So now you're in competition with people around the world. I'm just like, wow, just a different world.
But think about it. You guys only have to do it in English. I also have to add my own part in French.
Wow.
That's what I'm trying to do, is to infuse some French in some short film and stuff. So it's been working for me. It's been working, but I have double work. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I love when people say, Laura, how do you do it all? My very quick response is, I do not. Because then when they see that my Instagram has not been updated in forever, that my IMDb is missing a couple of films, I'm like, I don't do it all. I do my best.
Joseph, do you feel that people really need websites now with the advent of Facebook pages and Instagram and IMDb pages and all of that stuff?
Well, I would say right out the gate, I'm not an expert on that side of things, and I don't have a great social media presence, and I don't have a great updated website either. I think what I heard is in the beginning is it's nice to have somewhere to point people to. Like just now, what's your website? If I can just tell them, and then at least I do have some pictures. I do have some real material. I do have a resume. I do have links to other profiles, YouTube, Facebook and Instagram and other things like that, Actors Access. So, and then information for agents too. So I do think it's important to have like a landing page of some sort. There's Linktree and there's all these other ones. Just something that's like a central hub for if someone does want more information and they want to keep clicking and they want to find out more, at least there's something to get them started on that path. If you have a director or producer, say, or a writer that's like, hey, I'm really interested in this person, I'd like to find out more. Well, if it's really, really hard to get some information, they're just going to maybe give up. Whereas if at least you give them a central hub to go to, it's like, oh, I can click here and this, oh, that's interesting. I would like to click here and look at some real. Oh, I would like to click here and see, is he a psycho on social media or whatever the thing is. So yeah, I think it's interesting to have. I don't know that it's necessary. We were having this conversation the other day, me and this other actor that teach. Someone asked about printing out headshots, and we looked at each other and we were like, I hadn't printed one out in over 5, 6, 7 years. I don't even know. I hadn't printed one out. Or if someone asked for a hard copy, I'd have to like go figure that out again. So that's changed too, right, Brad? It's
Yeah,
all
I was about to
digital now. You
say,
don't have
and I
to-
actually found an old headshot from 35 years when I used to print it, but that's a great point. And the amount of money that you spent printing them
Oh, yeah,
and
that's really
storing them properly and sending them. You don't have to do that anymore. So I love it.
So if you are a committed actor, Bev Holloway just gave a live the other day on Facebook, and she said that the one perk, the huge perk of a website is it's kind of like if you have, when people ask me, well, when do I need a manager? And it's like, well, at the point where you have something to manage. Like if you don't have anything to manage, it kind of just cancels itself out. But if you have you have a good reel, and then you have maybe even a newspaper article, and newspapers are only almost a thing of yesterday, right? But if you have some media, maybe some interviews that you can post, you were interviewed in a podcast, or you were, on your hometown news channel or things like that, you can put a bio on there. She said, if I love someone's self-tape and I just want to know more about them as a person, I adore when they have a website, because it just gives me a chance to know them on a deeper level. Now, social media can do that, but a website, if you have enough to offer that is genuinely interesting and reflects you well, I would say consider a website.
But it's not that would you say the casting network is absolutely necessary? Because I thought at the beginning the actor access was enough, but then a lot of people now say the casting networks, and I'm uneasy with that one because it's just new to me.
Yeah, so we're going way beyond. Maybe we know Joseph what our next sessions should be.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, maybe actor tools. Maybe we can just talk about that. But that's a thing of prayer, because really you could be everywhere. You could be on backstage.com and actorsaccess.com and castingnetworks.com and faithbasedcasting.com. You could be everywhere, or your finances, you might have to pray and say, Lord, I can only be in one. Where should I be? Where are the jobs? Only you know where are the jobs that I should be looking at. And for somebody, it might be castingnetworks.com. For the next person, the Lord might lead them to go to backstage.com. Others have all of them. So it really is a prayer-led journey, and what your resources and your prayer life determine, I believe that that's what God will use.
There's also a site, the Christian casting use, because I'm not aware of that. That's the same thing as Actor Access, but for the Christian world. I'm not aware of that one.
Well, that's very sweet. You think so? We are trying to be the Actors Access of the faith-based film world, Christian casting, and our new app, Room 4, is going to be like a LinkedIn meets Actors Access meets Backstage.com meets this whole casting platform. When it's fully funded, it's going to be a literal world, a virtual world for the faith-based film community.
I'm so glad I asked, because I did come across this Room 4, but I could not understand what that was about. Really, I was thinking,
go ahead
is
and
that
email
just
me.
to get jobs, or I wasn't
It's a
sure.
good app.
So,
It's a good app. I started using that. I was going to show, this is my headshot
Hey,
from many years ago when I actually had
that's
hair.
amazing.
Now it's something else.
Yeah, you can still use that. You can still use that.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, so that was how it's done. Anyway,
Apostolic access. That's what you can call it. Apostolic access. You can have the Christian Actors Access. You keep the AA theme going.
All right. Well, we want to respect your time. We went 1 hour and 20 minutes. Joseph, thank you for the extra few minutes. And thank you all for your time yesterday and today. I hope you guys found this beneficial, and know that we really are cheering you on, and we are wishing God's best for you on this journey. So we will hopefully see you next time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, y'all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.